Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can tell by this assembled bunch of little jars and containers in front of you, I think we're going to talk about glue today and all the different types and what they're good and not so good for. So just a couple of tips on what's out there, what's useful, what isn't, and how many different types there are, because there really are a lot. So let's get into it and talk some glue, because it's a little bit of a sticky subject. See what I did there? Yeah, that's funny. No, not really, but hey, hey, I'm trying, all right, guys? Okay, guys, we're going to start off with the strong arms of the glue family, which is the CA glues. Now, CA glues work very well, they dry very fast. The only thing is that it's a very strong adhesive, and a lot of times the CA glues will fog up clear parts and will eat right through your paint. So you got to be very careful when you use them. Now, these are the three CA glues that I use on a regular basis, and the three that I like. And I'm going to tell you why. The first one is the Bob Smith Super Gold. Bob Smith Industries Super Gold. It dries. Let me just give you this one right here. Let's get these two out of the way. Let him have its spotlight. This stuff dries very quickly, cures almost instantly, and the best part about it is it's completely clear. I would use this on any and all clear parts that I have to bond to the body. As you know, attaching windshields can be a real pain on some of the models. This stuff, you put a couple of drops on, you lay the glass down, and boom, it's done. And will not fog at all. This is my CA glue of choice whenever I have to put any delicate parts that are either clear, near paint, or anything like that. This is where I go, because this is my favorite of all the CA glues. Now, my second favorite is this good old-fashioned Testors super glue. Now, this stuff I like for one particular reason. It's very thick. It's almost a gel like consistency, and it will hold apart. If you're attaching something that's very small, something that's very delicate, very light, and you know that you put it down and it's just going to fall right off before the glue cures, this is where the thickness of the glue of this particular product comes in very handy, because you can put the part down and the thickness of the glue will hold the part in place while it cures. In most instances, I mean, yeah, you're always going to run into some situations where that's not going to work, but for most parts, if I have to install something very small into another part, like, let's just take a look at this little piece down here. This is the mirror for the Pops Fiero build. I had to install these lenses. Now, these lenses are these the glass pieces are very light, tiny little pieces of plastic, and if I would have put it in there with the regular super glue or on any other type of cement, they might have fallen right out before it cured. Now, the thickness of this particular super glue held the lens in place after I applied it, and it just stayed there until it cured. Now that it's cured, it's in there forever. So this is something that I'll use specifically when I need to hold a part to hold in place while it dries, and needed to hold in place where I can't sit there and just hold it together. It just needs to stay in its place, maybe while you're attaching mirrors and things like that. This stuff works really great for that, specifically for that reason, the thickness and consistency of the fluid. So this is why this is in there on my top choice of super glues. Now, this is a new addition to my super glue family. I just started using this. This dries very quickly, seems to bond very hard. So these parts aren't coming apart when you glue them together. The only issue I have with this is that it is very, very thin. Unlike the testers, which is a thick consistency, and the Bob Smith, which is sort of in between the two, this is very thin and will run on you. And you know what happens when CA glue runs onto your paint. You're going to have a bad day. So that is my one reason why this I use it very limited in areas where I don't have to worry about the glue running or whether it's going to show or not, such as attaching an interior to the chassis. I'll put this glue in areas that aren't going to be seen, and it bonds and holds very well. But I will not use it anywhere near paint or glass, as this will fog up your glass. This one will also fog up your glass. Only the Bob Smith is the one that you can use on the clear parts from what I've seen so far. So this glue I will use when I need to put down a large amount of CA glue to hold something, two large pieces together that is not going to show. But would not use this anywhere where you will be able to see the parts that you're bonding together. So that covers all of my CA glues and the different reasons why I use them. Like I said, the Bob Smith will always be my number one choice. The testers I love for specific applications. And this one, when I need a large item that won't be seen to be bonded together, that's where that one comes in. So as you can see, different glues have different applications based on their properties. And that is why you ask yourself, why do I have so many glues? That's why. Because specific applications need a specific characteristic of the glue to do a specific job. At least that's the way I look at it. So that covers the CA glues. So let's now move on to our next section of glues. Okay, now we're looking at thin cements or plastic welding cements. Now, this stuff I love, again, for very specific reasons. My favorite and my go-to are the Tamiya extra thins. You have the quick setting and you have the regular extra thin. These things are fantastic because they serve several different purposes. First off being that when you apply the cement, it is so thin, you'll hold the two parts together, it'll sink itself into the seam that you're bonding together using capillary action because it is so thin, much like using a panel liner paint. Now, once that sinks in there, what it's going to do is it's going to start to melt the plastic. Now, those two pieces that you're trying to glue together will actually fuse together and become one part. And the beauty of that is that once the plastic melts together and fuses itself together, it fills in the seam. And once you sand it down and smooth it out, you're going to find that your seam is pretty much gone. Another purpose that I found out Tamiyas are very good at is that if I have to cut and file something and it's in a very weird area that is just kind of difficult to get to, and you have a rough edge on it, you run a little bit of the Tamiya extra thin on it, it'll melt the rough edges and actually smooth them out so that once it's done and cured, they're a lot smoother than what they were after you cut them. It really does help to clean up some of your cutting and some of your filing. It has those two functions alone make it almost the perfect model building cement, which is why it's always going to be my favorite. Now, the testers and the Flexifile also work very well. The testers I do like. The Flexifile I've only used a few times, so I can't really say. I've only used it a couple of times, but I'm not really sure whether it's going to stay in my collection. I'm not really that thrilled with it. The Tamiyas have next to no odor. The Flexifile one does have a bit of a smell, and I think the testers, if I remember, also does have a bit of a smell. But the testers works very well, and just as far as bonding things together, eliminating seams, smoothing out plastic, there is nothing better than these plastic welding cements. Their properties are different than the CA glues, and you have to be very careful with it because as you're bonding the cements together, as you're bonding the two pieces of plastic together, the plastic gets very soft. So you're going to have to make sure you let it set aside and cure completely, because even though the cement may evaporate to the touch and you won't feel it, the plastic can still be soft, and you may actually warp the piece if you start trying to work with it right after you glue it together. So you always got to remember to set it aside, let it cure, let it harden, so that when you touch it, you won't actually warp it because the plastic is soft and it'll bend on you. So I got to tell you that the Tamiya cements, love them, we'll use them forever. Okay, that takes care of our plastic welding cements. Now let's take a look at something old school, which everybody hates, but I still have a specific use for, so I like them. Here we go, our tried and true, old school, ancient technology plastic model cement from Testors. Yes, I know this is old school technology that has been around since the beginning of model building. These are actually the non-toxic ones that smell citrusy, which I prefer. This I use for one reason and one reason only. They are very, very slow setting. You put this on here, it's going to take a while before this thing hardens and cures, which is one of the reasons most people don't like to use them. But when you're attaching, let's say you're putting part of a car together that's going to have like 3 or 4 different attachment points on one piece, and you've got to manipulate it and move it and get all the different attachment points to join together. This, once you apply it and you let it set up a little bit and it gets very thick, it's going to give you the time to install the part, move it if you have to, and make any adjustments you need to make before it hardens and cures. For example, this Fiero model here. Now, if we're looking at the subframe and engine as it's installed into the car, you're going to see that you have your subframe, your shocks. The subframe has 4 mounting points. Then you have the 2 shock absorbers, the 2 struts in the rear, which have to attach to the chassis. So you actually have 6 mounting points there. Now, but what you don't see in these instructions, because they don't really make it clear, is that you're going to need to be able to maneuver the shocks to get them into the mounting points in the wheel wells of the chassis, while at the same time moving the strut, the subframe, to get it to mount to the 4 attachment points in the chassis. Now, you put a drop of this Testors glue in there, you let it set up for a minute so that it thickens, and then you just start pulling the subframe into the car, and then you'll move everything you need to move before the glue sets up, and you have plenty of time, believe me, because this thing takes a long time to set up. You'll have plenty of time to make all of your movements, all of your adjustments before the glue sets up, and get it in there perfectly. Let's take a look at the step before that. You can see the shock absorbers that sit right behind the brake rotors, and just attaching that and then attaching it to here, you're going to get all sorts of movement. This glue is perfect for just holding the pieces in place until you make all your adjustments, set them in place, and then just leave it alone. It's going to take a while, but once it dries, it's going to be right where you need it. That is the only reason that I use these Testors glue, and I have yet to find something that works as well as this and then hardens the way this does, to the point where you can easily just where it's going to hold as well as any CA glue. So this is this one specific purpose that I still keep the Testors plastic model cement in my toolbox. I hope I made that clear, and I hope it made sense. But that's why I keep this stuff in here, and why I'm going to continue to keep it in here, even though it is old and outdated. All right, let's take a look at the last bit of glue work that I have here. Another Testors product, their clear cement and window maker. This stuff I have kind of a love-hate relationship with. Once it dries, it works very well. It dries completely clear. It's great for windows, and if you have to make windows in, like, if you're doing a spaceship or something like that, or an aircraft or a ship of some sort, and you have to make small windows, this stuff works fantastic. You will be waiting for it to dry, though. And you will be waiting and waiting and waiting, and that is where I have my issue with this stuff. And once you're gluing a windshield into a car, as you know, some of them are going to shift on you. They won't stay in place. This stuff, you put it down, you're going to have to tape it down, do something to hold it in place, because the glass will not stay there until this stuff cures. So it's something that I use, but no, it'll never be one of my favorites. You have to know how to deal with this stuff when you use it, because it doesn't have a lot of holding ability until it dries. So it's my least favorite of all the glues, but hey, it does work. I have used it and it does work, so that's why it's going to stay in the toolbox. Is it my favorite? No, but it has its uses. So that pretty much covers all of the glues that I keep in my toolbox, and why I have them. I hope this kind of made sense. Just a little bit. Oh, wait. Forgot to mention something. If you're going to use CA glue, Instaset, this stuff really makes it cure a heck of a lot faster than it normally would. Put a couple of drops of this on right after you glue your item, and it'll stay right where you want it and harden almost instantly. But you have to be careful when you use that, because you have to make sure you're in the right place, because if you're not, whatever you glue together is staying there. Oh, wait a minute. Got to talk about the Bondic. Okay, let's just move all of this away. Forgot to talk about the last item in my toolbox. This is Bondic. This stuff, again, is something that has its uses. If you're looking to bond something together really quickly with a clear adhesive, this stuff works great. It does yellow a bit, but it is great for making lenses. It is great for holding two pieces together. You apply it, hit it with the UV light, and it hardens in about 5 to 10 seconds. So if you're looking to just bond two pieces together or hold them together while you're doing something else, this is great. I've used it a few times, and it's done exactly what I needed it to. Now, is it the strongest adhesive out there? No, it is not. Is it a replacement for CA glue? No, I wouldn't. This is a good tool to have in addition to your other glues, not in place of them. But I love this thing. It's come in very handy quite a few times. And then the last glue that I have is something that I picked up. It's GS Hypo Cement. Now, this is for all sorts of different materials, not just plastic model kits. And it does work pretty well. It dries clear. It's a little kind of gel-like. I haven't used it that many times, so not really. I just picked it up just to see what this was about. I saw it in a hobby shop. So I don't really have an opinion on this one yet, because I really haven't used it very much. But it was an interesting addition to the glue set. So there we go, guys. That is everything that's in my toolkit as far as glues go and why I use them. I hope that this made sense to you guys, and I hope maybe it well, I'm hoping that maybe it makes some kind of sense, and that you guys and helps you guys make a choice on what kind of glues to use and why. Just thought I'd toss that out there. It was just an interesting subject that I thought of when I was moving all my stuff around and putting all my glues in one area. So I just thought it was interesting. Thought you guys might too. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Done talking about glue. If you've lasted this long, then thanks for staying. Anyway, remember to like and subscribe. That's all I have to say. I'll see you on the next one.